Welcome, everybody. My name is Aletia Montero. I'm your host today. We are in the last day of this wonderful conference, online conference, which belongs to the 25th WFSF World Conference, Exploring Liminalities, Creating Spaces for Unlimited Futures online program, Futures for Humanity, as part of the 15th World Future Studies Federation anniversary celebration. So we are here with Dr. Lionel Huntley Henderson with his presentation, If Not Metaverse, Then What? The Need to Explore Alternatives. So please, Doctor, the stage is all yours.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. And I guess I will share my screen now, yeah? Okay. And I'll do this. Yeah, just hold on one moment. We have that and Zoom and share screen. And I think we are ready to go.
Yeah,
okay.
perfect.
Perfect. Okay. And first of all, many thanks to Eric, the president of WFSF, obviously all hosting institutions in Paris, and thanks to all the colleagues online and also who are physically at the event in Paris. I'm a member of the WFSF as well, and so I'm really delighted to be as part of this presentation and conference. So obviously the title has already been introduced. So I think it's important I introduce a little bit about myself, though, because I haven't seen some of you in a while. And I do live in China, Shanghai, China. That's where I reside, and I work at the Sino-British College, which is a consortium of UK universities from the north of China, or north of the UK, I should say. And we are in collaboration with the University of Shanghai for Science and Technology here as well. And I am the head of school for the School of Business and Management. And so we have about 1,400 students studying our business programs in a variety of multidisciplinary areas. Some involve a lot of creativity and lend themselves to future studies. Although we do not have a future studies program, we do encourage critical thinking and higher order thinking. Okay, so that's just a bit about myself, to let you know. And so obviously we're talking about the metaverse today. And, with that, we're trying to understand, is it really sustainable? And, is it socially responsible to have a metaverse? Would grand futures be an application for the metaverse to consider in future studies research? And what alternatives can we look at? If we don't have the metaverse, then what else do we have out there as some sort of platform to work from? So the one thing that we can say about the metaverse for sure is that it doesn't exist yet. And that's I guess an exciting thing because it brings out a lot of possibilities of what it could possibly be. But with that, there's a lot of lack of coherence in the definition of a metaverse and what it constitutes among academics and technical practitioners. And what we can say is that there seems to be this agreement on it being some sort of other universe, a virtual universe that involves digitization, involves some sort of seamless interaction with a variety of platforms and devices, very much kind of like how the internet works, but on a much higher augmented level that gives us more sensation, audio, touch sensations, etc., within a real-time interactivity-based format where basically everyone can get involved in. Basically an alternate world is what we're looking at. So that's kind of what we can say, that we can agree on what the a metaverse could be. And obviously with that, there's a lot of hype. There's a lot of impact potentially. And when you think about, how it's influencing gaming for e-games, et cetera, that's really just the starting point of what the metaverse could do, a very small kind of pilot project. And, for currency applications, things like the digital yuan, which they're talking about replacing the dollar potentially with the BRICS, trade negotiations. The metaverse could do a lot more beyond that for trade and currency exchange, and provide a lot of efficiencies. Obviously, we have digital twins, which would be basically a digitized version of us, but not just humans, objects in the metaverse. And really, there's a lot of high adaptability rates in Asia and also the Middle East and North Africa. So with that, will the metaverse give us a competitive advantage, and potentially help shift this, this kind of competitive playing field in the world, and maybe even shift some of the world order a little bit based on the metaverse? Who knows? There's definitely a lot of interest, and we have journals, even the Journal of the Metaverse, and we can see also that there's an uptick in a lot of publications and written articles about the metaverse. I pulled out this Metaverse 2040 by the Pew Research Center because I thought it was interesting. It was based on about 700 tech experts. What did they think about the metaverse? And there's a pretty split polling as to what they think it will or will not be in terms of being much more refined and truly immersive, well-functioning aspect of daily life. So that again gives us an idea that there's a lot more for us to explore and do as futurists to help change what could be the future of this new universe that we could get into and involve and partake. For me, when I think about the metaverse, I come back to this fun little joke that I like that's related to physics. And I think that's what we should reflect on, taking a step back about the metaverse and recognizing that it's really about mind and matter. You're taking the matter, whether it's human or some sort of inanimate object, and then digitizing them in some sort of hologram or a digital twin in the metaverse. And then we have, the consciousness, there's the human consciousness, and there's also machine consciousness that we have to be aware of too. So I think whatever we move forward with the metaverse or any alternative of the metaverse, we can't take our eye off the ball, off of, the mind and the matter, and make sure that underpins absolutely everything to build in the metaverse, to have a very constructive metaverse. Okay. So with that, if you just put in a search term of the metaverse in some journals that cater to future studies, such as foresight or technological forecasting and social change, we do see an uptick, especially this year in 2023, in more journals that do have metaverse kind of hosted in one way or another, whether it's in the title or whether it's keyword search or somehow related to metaverse, more showing up, particularly for this year, which I think is really exciting. And I think that gives, something, a new direction for futurists to really explore. When you think about how much research was done about the internet and all the minor areas to explore within the internet, I think the metaverse could be, exponentially big in terms of what we could research and understand with the metaverse. Interesting also, and I found in the journal Futures, there only seemed to be one journal article that came up about the metaverse. So I think my point is, I think there's a lot more research that Futures should be doing in the metaverse. Okay. And obviously we've got some, questions about, is this sustainable, this whole idea of the metaverse? And it's rigorously debated, even though we don't have coherence on what it will be or how it's defined. But I think we got to remember that the speed of technology is always increasing. We have this concept of singularity, and so that gives really some support for this argument that yes, it is feasible, it's possible. and also that it can provide a lot of, great support to sustainable efforts. One thing that I thought was quite interesting in my lit review research was, the simulation support, advanced simulation on a variety of natural disasters, whether they're earthquakes or forest fires or floods, and having that kind of simulated world can help us, predict, control, and manage a lot of these, natural disasters, as well as rising flood levels, and how we can understand and better prepare for that. I thought that was quite interesting and gives rise to support the sustainable aspect of the metaverse. But when you look at how energy consuming the internet currently is, which is really, equivalent to the energy consumption of an entire country, which seem to be the same as Netherlands or Argentina's energy consumption, that is quite significant. And if we're talking about the metaverse being a highly augmented form of the internet, then we have to ask ourselves, how much energy will the metaverse actually take up? And is this pursuit of the metaverse actually sustainable? Will it actually end up being a major contributor to climate change with all the hardware that will be involved? And will it disrupt pollution and a loss of biodiversity as well? Okay. The other thing to remember is that, we're talking about another universe, and it has to be a single universe. So therefore, we're trying to really manage all of those laws of physics, thermodynamics, mass, etc., within this universe that we're creating. So there's a lot of activity and action happening, and action and reaction. So I think there's a huge amount of energy in the metaverse, and it was basically going to be at risk of doubling our current environmental problems that we have now. And obviously there's many environmentalists and scientists who say that we're at some points an irreversible change of changing or saving some of these environmental issues. So are we exacerbating the problem with the creation of the metaverse? I think we should be conscious of that. In addition to, is the metaverse sustainable? Is it socially responsible? The World Economic Forum advocates it is in their forward that I've put here in citations. Personally, for me, I'm less convinced. I think there has to be more work into the metaverse being socially responsible, given the level of digital exclusivity we currently see with the internet, with the issues of digital accessibility, people with obviously a variety of disabilities or even financial restrictions that don't allow them to access fully or even partially the internet as we know it. I think if the metaverse is something much bigger than the internet, we have to bear that in mind, because we don't want to really exclude large chunks of society from something that is supposedly going to be advancing humanity, maybe advancing some parts of humanity and leaving an even greater amount of humanity behind. I think also we can only look at the cyberbullying that's been happening, and how would that look like on the metaverse? If we're supposed to go into this new separate world, does that mean we maintain our own identities? If I'm impoverished in real life, am I impoverished in the metaverse? Will there be literally a digital skid row? Is that my options? And how do I get out of that? Through microtransactions? Or how does this all apply? I think there's a lot of questions that we have to ask ourselves, because we don't want to risk having further digital exclusion with the metaverse. And I think that would be very socially irresponsible. And, in addition to, trying to access the hardware and software requirements and everything else, what about, the psychological elements? What if, we have this scenario where we're actually entering the metaverse and therefore we leave afterwards, because it should be entering and exiting as we feel fit? Will there be withdrawal symptoms? Will we have metaverse withdrawal? What if we, we're kind of psychologically stuck in the metaverse world, even though we are physically still here in reality? I think these are questions for us to really ask ourselves. Okay, given the addiction that we have now with a lot of online games and cell phones and things of that sort, I think that's really important. And back to this mind or matter issue of how I view the metaverse, we want to remember that, this is in a way, especially the mind element, was how Larry Page and Elon Musk had the big fallout. Obviously, we all know these figures, and they were at one point good friends. And apparently, the story is that they did really have this disagreement over consciousness and whether human consciousness and machine consciousness should have equal footing or equal value in this world. Larry Page, to my understanding, based on how the story goes, thought that all consciousness, machine or human, should have equal value, whereas Elon Musk said no, human consciousness should have the priority. Let's work with the humans. And obviously, we've seen the amazing advancements in AI, especially recently. And the reality is the metaverse can only function based on a human entering this virtual world. And there's a whole bunch of bots and virtual, assistants that are supported by AI, right, to interact with that actual real human user. So I think we have to really, for the mind and matter question, we're being hologrammed in. That's kind of the matter issue. The mind is the consciousness. And I think that we have to really think about that when we think about the future of this metaverse. Okay, we're talking about it forward. I would really recommend more interest in exploring grand futures when we talk about the metaverse in futures studies. Andrew Sandberg is who, I was coined the phrase grand futures, or I believe he's coined the phrase, is finishing a book now about this subject area. And he's looking about, very deep projections in the future, 100+ years ahead. And really, when we talk about grand futures, we're obviously talking about something good, right? And it's the future of humanity starting to sketch a picture of what we could eventually achieve were we to survive, get our act together, and reach our full potential. And I think that's a perfect, summary of what we have. We have these sustainable issues. We have these socially responsible issues. Putting metaverse aside that we are faced with now in this world. And so if we have this advancement in technology and there's interest in the metaverse, then we really need to put this into question. If we're going to be sustainable and if we're going to have this technological advancement, then probably I would say that, this is the right way to go, the grand futures approach. I think that we really want to look at, different scenarios. We want to look at a failure or success or beyond success model or something to that effect. And what I would suggest is that we really have a preceding alternative, a parallel alternative, and a proceeding alternative to the metaverse if we're going to map this out. So we shouldn't just have research about the metaverse. We should have alternatives, which is kind of the future studies pluralistic outlook on life, right? And what the future will hold. So I think for the preceding alternative, we should look at kind of something like a Web3, which is part of the metaverse, but not fully constructed now. A Web3 alternative model where human consciousness is still superior to machine consciousness. We could then maybe have a parallel alternative where there's the metaverse established, and maybe they're starting to look into some other universes, but they're not fully explored or understood yet. But there's the search and the interest there. And at that point, let's just assume or say that at that point, we have human consciousness equal to machine consciousness. And then beyond that, if we have the metaverse, we've tried to look for other universes, we found them, then we have this multiverse model. And it's important to note that the multiverse really is, philosophically and theoretically debated as to whether it really exists. So I think if we're looking at a multiverse, a virtual multiverse, I think we should, tread carefully with that. But the idea would be that human consciousness will be less value than machine consciousness. Okay, so I've kind of just sketched these out, put in some little ideas here. And what we can see is that over time, as we develop our technology and we rise from Web3 fully implemented to metaverse, so let's say multiverse, we would see basically a decrease in the value of human consciousness, and we see an increase in the value of machine consciousness, holding many assumptions and things constant, just as one idea, one trajectory of the metaverse and beyond. Okay, we have another possible trajectory, which could be this decrease in the value of human consciousness, and increase in the value of machine consciousness up to the point of reaching the metaverse. And after that point in time, there's pretty much parallel value between, or equal value between human and machine consciousness from the metaverse to the multiverse and whatever exists beyond that. Okay. What we can also say is that, there could be some sort of, almost decline model, where at a certain point, let's say when we reach the metaverse, there's some sort of parity, equality between human and machine consciousness value. But after that, it starts to decline. The value of the machine consciousness declines for some sort of potentially diseconomies of scale reason, or some sort of, perhaps destruction by the humans, because we thought that finally this is not working out. There could be some conflicts with the advancements in technology, so we have to kind of pull the plug on the technology before it starts taking us over, right? That's one other outcome that we could look at as well. So, for these, alternative trajectories I put out, we are assuming linearity, so we have to really, look further at what are the determinants for the trajectory slope. How steep is the slope, or how does it look? The other thing you want to really assume is that, human consciousness, now has more value, or has more value than machine consciousness in the present. That's another assumption. And obviously machines are very good at some things now, but obviously we would still assume that human consciousness is more value now in the present. The other question, if we have moved to a curved line, what further insights would the curved trajectory tell us based on the relationship between human and machine consciousness? And there are other trajectories that are possible. We could even have parity or equality at the Web3 stage of technological development. Okay, so really my concluding thoughts, and this is a working paper, and your thoughts are welcome to support this. I actually saw Richard Slaughter's abstract, and I thought that was quite neat, and I'm sure he'll have some interesting ideas to share with me, as he did in the last conference in Norway a couple of years ago. But the metaverse does not exist yet, so we have to recognize that. And so I do think that, given we are futurists, we have a pluralistic outlook, we should be looking at alternative outcomes, and they should be investigated. And I think it should be some sort of preceding, parallel, and proceeding type of model. I think also we have to ask ourselves, we have all these problems of sustainability and responsible leadership currently in our world. We don't want to duplicate them. We don't want to get into a scenario where we're actually destroying the earth more, right? Or reaching this point of significant damage. So we really need to consider this in any metaverse study, in futures or foresight scenarios exercises, to not exacerbate the problems that we currently have with the physical world. I think the other thing would be, what will be the relationship going forward with machine and human consciousness, both preceding, parallel, and proceeding the metaverse? And the question also is, are futurists thinking deep enough, long enough into the future? And do we need to take a grand futures approach more often in the field? Okay, thank you so much. And your thoughts to develop this further, positive, negative, are all welcome. And I would be happy to talk to you separately or over a cup of tea virtually after this meeting. Okay, thank you so much. There's my presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Lionel. These are really important thoughts. We really need to discuss about this. So thanks for everything.
Oh, thank
Um, we also have this Slack channel for you to share thoughts and exchange of ideas. And beyond that, I want to ask to the attendees if anyone has comments or doubts. You can also, Doctor, write your email and your data in the chat.
Yeah, I will.
Okay. Okay, so does anyone has questions or comments? Mm. Okay, so it seems that nobody in as an attendee has questions or comments. Okay, I want to ask you something, Doctor. For example, with this going to Mars stuff, right? There
Right.
were lots of people precisely saying that how are we thinking in going to Mars and maybe, make like a lot of things there when we haven't fixed the Earth problems, no?
Yeah.
So,
Mm.
so yeah, I relate this to one of your last thoughts. So, what are your proposals in order us humans to fix our priorities here in the physical world before solving how to go to the metaverse?
Um, that's a very good question. Um, to be honest, I think the first thing is I think it's peace. To be quite honest, it might sound like a strange answer, but I think we first have to have some sort of peace first, and I think then you can have you need peace and harmony. That's I think that's about peace and harmony, because then you can start to have those discussions and start to make some progress forward on some of these very challenging issues. Even if some of them cannot be reversed back to a better state, I think you have to have the dialogue. To have the dialogue, you have to have harmony, and to have harmony, you have to have peace. And I think that's really important in the world today, obviously. And I think that can be the best starting point. A little more love can go a long way, and I think that's really important. And I think that kind of ties into the consciousness, the mind aspect of what I'm saying. There's mind or matter, and I think we have to take a step back and think about that, and because we don't want to have some of the conflicts that we're having now in a virtual world, and that just doubles those issues with defense issues and all these other things, right? So to be sustainable, I think we first kind of have to, I think that's what I would say. It's really that order. Okay. The peace, the harmony, and then we can kind of solve those issues through communication.
Right. I was once running a mental health panel, and I asked the main psychiatrist who was talking about the context, the world context of mental health. I asked to him how we can promote mental health in order to be a present and a future civilization
Mm,
with
yeah.
good mental health. And he just said that there are three things since his point of view: good humor,
Hmm.
making exercise, and preserving our main habits like good sleeping, good eating, and all of that,
Hmm.
no? And
Yeah.
I was like reflecting all over and over, because I'm a personal futures specialist, so all the time I talk about resilience and self-care and all that, right? So yeah, I like to put into a question if we are really taking care of what we need to take care of.
Yeah,
Because yeah, I see a lot of and it's okay, I see a lot of works and attention and importance to some developments and tech and all that, and it's okay, and we need that. But maybe we are skipping this part, right? As you
yeah.
are saying, we need to promote peace, harmony, and we need like to promote our survival in that sense, no?
Exactly, and that's where I think grand futures from Anders Sandberg, who I'm sure everyone who's listening has heard of him. He's a great researcher. Um, he's really about how can we pause, how can we get the most out of people, and how can we survive also at the same time and deal with all these other issues. So yeah, so it's
Right,
communication, peace, harmony, I think, and then we can really dig at this stuff. Yeah.
right. Well, thank you, Dr. Lionel. It's been a really great pleasure to have you here.